What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we're going over the top running backs that you should probably avoid in drafts. Remember, we don't dislike players, we dislike their ADPs, and these guys are just going too high based on the risks that they have with them or based on the projected fantasy points that we have them statted out to have. We'll jump right into it, but before we do though, make sure you're following both Nick and I on Twitter and check out our premium package. Right now it's at its lowest possible price of the whole off season, so go ahead and take a look. Link is in the description box below. And if you guys could, please give this video a like, and if you're new, make sure to subscribe. We're going to be posting videos every single day throughout the off season and season as well. But let's get into the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was which running back with at least 25 targets had the highest average depth of target. The answer was actually Trenton Cannon. Brett Thunstrom, congratulations, you got this one right, and we'll do the opposite. Which running back with at least 25 targets had the lowest average depth of target? Okay, so which running back with at least 25 targets had the lowest average depth of target? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. With that, let's get right into the video. The first running back to avoid in drafts is Todd Gurley. This one should be pretty obvious to most people because we're all wondering what on earth is going on with Todd Gurley. And what we know right now is limited, but if you've been paying attention, you know that he's dealing with some sort of knee arthritis. For a 24-year-old, makes a lot of us scratch our heads, but studies do show that up to 50% of people recovering from an ACL tear do develop some sort of arthritis in that knee within the next 10 years. So to say it's completely uncommon would be a lie, but I would personally assume that NFL athletes have an even decreased risk of having this issue, mostly due to having such great doctors and surgeons available to them, and also being in such great physical condition. Studies also show that small factors such as having weaker quad muscles could put you at a higher risk for developing arthritis sooner post ACL tear, but being such a physical specimen like an NFL running back, I would think that he would be put at an even less of a risk of having this type of issue. But regardless, this is something going on with Gurley, and he's experiencing it as we head into the 2019 season. So what happens if Todd Gurley does lose some touches? Is he still going to be able to be an RB1 in fantasy football? And the answer is possibly. In 2018, Gurley averaged about 1.18 fantasy points per touch. In 2017, it was about 1.12. So clearly, if he does lose a significant amount of touches, his overall fantasy finish will drop, and it will drop fast. But that's not the worst part. Let's talk about the weekly risk. If the Rams are up by 2 scores, why even send back in Gurley and risk him getting injured anyways? Could you imagine getting all of your fantasy points in the first half and the frustration that you have knowing that you might lose this game because they simply won't put him back in the lineup? With a high-powered offense like the Rams, being up 2 scores is not all that uncommon. We haven't even touched on what happens if the backup starts taking Gurley's touches and are great with those touches. That's just even less motivation for them to put Gurley back in no matter what. So how likely is that to happen? Well, let's just say CJ Anderson was able to average 6 yards per carry last season, which should tell you everything you need to know. So I guess the real question would be, at what point would we feel comfortable drafting him? I mean, if you're telling me choose between Gurley, James Conner, or Joe Mixon, I'm not taking Gurley over either of them. We may make a separate video on this subject itself, but for me it would easily have to be outside of the first 2 rounds. And I'm going to put a chart up on the screen. And longtime members have seen this, but it's updated to the current year. And basically it's the success rate of a draft pick by round, and it defines success as a top 30 finish. So clearly you can see that if you draft a running back in the first 2 rounds, you're above a 70% success rate that you're going to draft a top 30 running back. By the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, you're lucky to hit 50%. So clearly the first 2 rounds when you're targeting a running back are crucial. They're your easiest chance to actually hit on a player, and to willingly throw that away into a player that's just riddled with risk is a quick way to start off your draft the wrong way. There is a spot where Gurley could fall to where he would actually make a good draft pick, but I don't think that's reasonably going to happen to us, okay? The ones who do all the research are the ones who are less likely to fall for the name value of Todd Gurley. So to expect him to actually fall to an area where we feel comfortable drafting him is probably unlikely, but if we do feel like there is a stage in the draft that he could fall to reasonably in our drafts and we want to let you guys know about it, we'll make a video of it. But for now, you have to avoid drafting Todd Gurley at all costs. The next running back on our do not draft list is Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns, and this one hurts me because I really wish that Nick Chubb had this backfield to himself. He won me so many leagues last year, and because of that, it's going to be hard to pass him up, but I know that I have to because his ADP right now is in the middle of the 2nd round, and that is just not a big enough discount because remember, Kareem Hunt was signed by the Browns, and he's only dealing with an 8-game suspension. 8 games is a lot, but as soon as he comes back, Nick Chubb's fantasy value is going to be up in the air. The Browns have a Week 7 bye week, so Hunt won't see action until Week 10, so that also makes Kareem Hunt undraftable. But Nick Chubb, he's in the same situation. Have you ever owned Melvin Gordon in basically every year but 2017? Well, if you have, you know he was never available for the playoffs, so even though you made it to the playoffs, you never had the full strength of your roster while you were there. Making the playoffs is one thing, but we need to win in the playoffs, okay? And the best case scenario for Nick Chubb when Kareem Hunt comes back is that it's a timeshare. And a timeshare isn't actually a good thing for Nick Chubb because Kareem Hunt is actually the more versatile back. Nick Chubb, never really a pass catcher, and although this season he may be able to develop that, it's just another reason why he could lose his field time. And I don't want to draft a player willingly knowing I'm going to lose one of my best guys in about 8 to 10 weeks. No, that's just not what I want to happen, and we're just not getting a big enough discount on him in order to make that decision make sense. So Nick Chubb, sorry, you're virtually undraftable, but let's move over to the next guy. That's Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans. And Derrick Henry, hands down, has the widest range of outcomes of any running back on this list, or maybe even any running back in the league, because last season he finished with 215 attempts for 1,059 yards and 12 touchdowns, but nearly 50% of his fantasy points came between the weeks of 14 through 16, okay? So he could have that range of outcomes where he has that 14 through 16 type of production for the entire season, or he could have his regular production finishing outside of the top 30. I mean, in week 14 alone, he scored over 45 fantasy points and completely dominated. So I'm not saying that he doesn't have top 5 upside, but we have seen the ugly of Derrick Henry throughout the years, and even last season prior to week 14, he had a season high of 58 rushing yards, okay? A season high of 58 rushing yards. A lot of people will be quick to throw out the fact that he wasn't given an opportunity, but 8 of 13 of those weeks he was given double-digit carries, and it was behind the 9th highest graded run blocking line, and anyone who has followed Derrick Henry over the years know that even his yard per carry averages are deceiving. He kind of goes through this little circle where he has a habit of being stuffed at the line of scrimmage several times, and then he'll bust through the line for a big play and a big gain, and that's an okay strategy. I mean, it did work for Jay Ajayi for the years, but how long until that team gets fed up with him not being able to convert on 3rd and short? Derrick Henry's going to have to do something, and he's going to have to perform in ways we've never seen him perform before. And I'm not saying he doesn't have the motivation. It is a contract year for him, but the fact is Tennessee hasn't already re-signed him. And why is that an important factor? Well, think of it. If you had faith that Derrick Henry was going to be your guy, wouldn't you want to sign him while he's at his cheapest, right? No. Instead, they're going to give him these workhorse duties, and presumably he's going to perform as a top 5 running back, and then they're going to re-sign him when he costs 4 times as much. To me, it's a sign that they don't quite believe in him, and while I'm not saying that he won't perform, I'm saying that that's just too much risk for a 3rd round running back. So think of it this way. Even if Derrick Henry does hit, and instead of drafting Henry, you grabbed a different running back in that round, you aren't going to be disappointed that you missed out on Derrick Henry unless your running back busted. How many points per game is Derrick Henry reasonably going to need to score ahead of the running back that you drafted for you to feel like you really missed out? It's going to have to be something significant because you do know that you avoided a ton of risk by not choosing Derrick Henry. So for us, the decision's easy. Move from Derrick Henry over to one of these other running backs, and even if Derrick Henry hits, you're not going to be kicking yourself in the butt because there are a lot of good options. Remember, the safety of your picks in the early rounds are invaluable. Don't throw them away into knowingly risky running back situations with the glamour and enamor of upside. It's the quickest way to have your early picks bust, and the good teams, those teams that are going to be in the championship, they're going to hit on their 1st round, their 2nd round, and their 3rd round picks. All of them. And you're going to have to play in the championship against these players, okay? And if you have your 3rd round pick not available, you're going to have to hit on a lot of your late round picks in order to even compete against that team. Think about that. The final player on this list is going to be Jordan Howard of the Philadelphia Eagles, and this one's pretty simple. Don't get me wrong, Jordan Howard, he is a really good running back. He has everything you look for when you want an early down rusher. He's consistent, he's a bruiser, he can really wear down a defense. And between me and you, a lot of us were disappointed that he didn't play as much as we had liked in Chicago last season. But this season, he's now in Philadelphia, and he's going to have a very specific role. In fact, every running back that plays in Philadelphia has a very specific and defined role because they refuse to use a workhorse running back. In fact, the last time that they did use a workhorse running back was 5 years ago with LaShawn McCoy under a different coaching staff. So what's to say that that's going to change this season? And let's play devil's advocate here and say that they were going to try to use Jordan Howard as a workhorse running back. Why would they pick him? Okay, he isn't a strong enough pass catcher, and all of the 3-down backs in the league have to have strong pass catching abilities. Jordan Howard has cinder blocks for hands. So the only thing that makes sense is for him to be the early down back in the goal line back, which on Philly, it could have some sort of upside. Don't get me wrong. It is a good offense, but most leagues are transitioning to some sort of PPR. And if you're not getting receptions, you need to bank on a touchdown in order to have any sort of upside. So to me, it just sounds like Jordan Howard is running the risk of being an overpriced LeGarrette Blount. So that's not somebody I'm interested in spending an early or middle round pick on. But hey, that's going to do it for today's video. We really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.